A little bit about me to start with. My name's Rob McGarty. I'm in Seattle, Washington, a real estate agent. I've been doing real estate about 20 years. I have my own brokerage right now, which I've been doing for about 10 years. My business is primarily repeat and referral at this point. I've got some stuff here. I don't like to brag a lot, so I kind of like to let my clients do the talking. So you can see we got a bunch of online reviews. There's a QR code here that goes to my Blink profile. If you want to connect, I'd love to connect with you. From a little production standpoint, here's my production over the last couple of years. Obviously, COVID, we went pretty crazy. Came down a little, but we were up last year when I know the market was a little bit tough. And then one thing I want to point out on this production, I started doing coaching in 2019, and you can see my production's been up since then. And so the stuff we learned through this and the processes are definitely worth doing. So that's my little plug for that. And then, so we're going to jump right into it. On mail, like I talked about, there's sort of two categories I think of, or I do. And again, this is stuff I do. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But digital, so I do a weekly newsletter. I know it's a lot. I've been doing it for a long time. I get really good feedback on it, and it does convert. It's just a long sales cycle, but it keeps me top of mind, and it's something I hear about a lot from my clients. And then if we have extra time, I'm gonna jump into some of my physical mailing that I do, and one of my favorite projects, which is coming up soon. So we'll be talking about that after the mail stuff, newsletter stuff. So first, on the newsletter, so I've been writing this. Tomorrow will be 435 Fridays in a row. That is a lot of Fridays. If you do some quick math, 435 divided by 52 weeks in a year, that's 8.365 years of every single Friday. Even when I'm on a trip, there's been a couple times where I've had somebody on the team write it, but generally I will personally write it every single week. For instance, last week I was off the grid in a Canadian ski hut deep in the middle of nowhere with super slow Wi-Fi at the hut that I was able to jump onto. And I made a couple edits to what I wrote before I went in the hut, and we still shipped it on Friday. Matter of fact, I've had some people, if it comes out not at the same time on Friday, they freak out and wonder what's going on. And I had one person who was a lender even tell me if it didn't come on Friday, he would know something's wrong in the world. So if you want to sign up for it, this QR code will take you there, or you go to bushwick.com/newsletter. And this is not a typical newsletter. So one thing I want to point out, I know a lot of people are probably rolling their eyes at the idea of a newsletter, but this is not a canned newsletter. So for example, I've deleted most of them, but I just went to my inbox to pull one as an example of what we see in our inbox now. So this one, number one, this is I literally cut and pasted this from a newsletter somebody sent, a lender. It even had a section that says newsletter is compiled by an outside source, and any financing information may or may not apply to all consumers or be offered by all lenders. How generic is that? And then it gets worse. You go down to the next line and it says your body copy here. And that means that's where the lender is supposed to type in their personalized stuff, and they didn't even do it. They just hit send. And so all of our inboxes are full of these kind of terrible newsletters, and that's not what I'm talking about doing. So lenders, if you're listening here, stop using those services that put out the same thing. As a real estate agent, we get dozens of the same exact newsletter, same subject line, same content. It's obvious you're just not putting any effort in. So I think it's going to be more beneficial for you to just not do it than it is to send out something that everybody's getting the same thing. Agents, same deal. I'm on a bunch of agents' emails lists, and it's a bunch of recycled content, even for the people at brokerages with all the fancy technology that are writing newsletters for you. It's obvious it's written by somebody else, not you. And as an agent, we get a lot of the same stuff, but as clients, they might not be getting the same stuff. But if they are on two different agents' mail lists, they're likely getting the same stuff. Bottom line, you want to stand out, be authentic, be yourself. That's what people want. So to sum it up, basically either do the work or just don't do it at all. Figure out a different thing that meets your style and your client base. So for my newsletter, here's a quick look at it. This is a link to a couple weeks ago newsletter. I didn't have time to slice and dice last week's newsletter. but this QR code will take you to it. And it's kind of long. A lot of people don't read all of it. Some people just read different sections, and I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of how I put this together every week. But a quick summary is, we have like our intro. I do a bulleted point intro of what's going on. So some people just scan this part and go. Otherwise, we talk about, I kind of call it the McGarty Minute, funny name I came up with for the intro. And this is the part I talk about big stuff in the market. And with that, this particular one, we're talking about a fundraiser we were doing, some other stuff in the field. We revise the chart we use every week. We talk a little bit about mortgage rates and what's going on in the field. And then I dive into the data. So I'm pretty data driven. I pull my own data. And that's another thing I think people see is that when you're sending out the same charts that your brokerage or MLS is giving you, everybody's seeing the same stuff. It's clear you're pulling data at a very general level. So if you can get specific about what you're doing and make it your own, people are going to react better to that. And so I do a weekly listing chart that I pull every week, and you kind of see in here, it was 7 years of data on top of each other, and then we just revised it to a new style this year that's a little bit easier to read. Then we jump into notes from the field, and this is sort of like what's going on in the field, the action, new listings, bidding wars, that kind of stuff. And that's, a lot of people really gravitate towards that because they like to know the nuts and bolts of what's going on. Finally, we do a video tour of houses, and then we try to do a client spotlight. So again, I send it out to a lot of people. About half of them open it, and then within that half that open it, a decent percentage click on links, and that's the important part. So people opening it and then clicking on the links. And then the other people are seeing your email every week, and you're staying top of mind. They know you're there. The other half, it's likely going to spam, or they're not seeing it at all, or they've blocked me or something like that. But that's fine. They're not our people. So now I'm going to jump into the format. So as I kind of talked through that high level format and the visual, and my advice to you is just pick a format and stick with it until the data says otherwise. So I find this is sort of the format we just talked about. I have the macro, which is I set the tone for the week. I add value about what's going on in the market at a high level. We do a section now, we call it swoon-worthy houses, and it's like eye candy. So it's what's the prettiest listing of the week or craziest listing of the week. We get a lot of clicks on that. We actually probably get the most clicks on that because people like looking at interesting stuff. So if that keeps people opening the newsletter to click on that stuff, great. I want to get more people clicking. Finally, I do data, like I do a deep dive in data, both that new listings, other sorts of data. I will take data that's in the news and do a further analysis on it and explain why that data is good or bad. And then the notes from the field section we talked about, that's sort of I categorize as a combination of gossip and EOS, evidence of success, which is the way of showing my new listings, stuff we wrote offers on, stuff we got under contract, crazy other stuff that happened in the field, just showing that we're out there all week. And I typically do it on a day-to-day basis. So I'll say something like, hey, over the weekend we did X, on Monday we did Y, on Tuesday we looked at all these offers and did this and this and this. And then if there's nothing that happens on the day, we'll skip it. And then I'll say on Friday we did this and we ship it. And then the video tour is just showing that we're out in the field and setting the tone that, hey, here's a house. You want to see a house that just came on the market? And check it out. So consistency is key here. Like I said, I've been doing this a ridiculously long time. I'm terrible at all of the stuff I'm supposed to be doing on a daily basis, but this is sort of my one thing I do very, very consistently. I have, I guess it's one of those streaks, like the kids on Snapchat. They don't want to lose their streak. So I don't want to lose my newsletter streak. So I keep doing it. And at the end of the day, being authentic and adding value is what makes people want to come back. So if you're just writing something that's generic and something your brokerage is giving you or something you're buying off of Keeping Current Matters or whatever that thing is, it's out. Everyone has that same stuff. And so you want something that's different, and you want to add your voice to it and make your tribe follow it. So don't worry about trying to get everybody. You want to get your clients. And the way I think about it is this combination of doing a letter of the heart and an evidence of success every week. So I have all those sections that meet, my macro section where I set the tone. that usually has some intro about something borderline personal, what's going on, tying into the market. So it feels like people have a way to approach, be on the same page as me. And then as we wrap it up in the notes from the field, that's sort of the evidence of success. The one thing that sucks is you send this out and then you always get unsubscribes, and that's kind of sad. But at the same time, some of those people who I worry about unsubscribing, I'll email them or call them and see why they unsubscribed. And some are just like, hey, too much in the inbox. Other ones are like, hey, we bought something without you. And that's whatever. That's fine. Don't take it personally. Have a little quick pity party and move on. And just like everything you're hearing throughout coaching, you just got to keep doing it to see results. It takes a long, long time, but it's something that will start building upon itself. And so with that, here's a recent example. Here's an email I just got on February 17th, literally while I was off the grid in this Canadian ski hut. And so here's the guy. I've noticed your newsletters. I was wondering if we could set up some time for a quick chat. And then I was like, whoa, I don't even know who this person is. And so I searched them in my email platform. And I discovered he signed up for the newsletter in December of 2018. That's almost 7 years ago. It was from an open house I did. And he wouldn't even give me his name. We just got him signed up as JG. And now 7 years later, he's reached out after seeing the newsletter to talk about buying a house. So it does work. It just takes a long time. This is probably an extreme example. A lot of them move a lot quicker. But data driven. So next, I want to show you kind of how the sausage is made. So the way I do this, because it's so complicated, is I set a time limit, and when I'm done, I ship it. I don't start working on it early in the week. I literally wake up Friday morning around 6, plus or minus, some weeks earlier, some weeks later, and I just start working on it. I make a lot of coffee and I just sit there and work. And when I'm done, I ship it. Or when my first meeting that I can't miss happens, I'm done and I ship it. So you'll see in the newsletter over some weeks, as we get further down in that long newsletter, I'll ship the same stuff at the bottom for a couple of weeks. A lot of people don't even scroll that far, so I don't worry about it. The other thing I do is I keep a running note during the week. So if I see something that's interesting, that makes sense to have in the newsletter, I'll make notes on that. And in an ideal week, I'll have a couple notes or themes. And then Thursday night, I'll think about the themes before I go to bed. And I'm like, okay, I got to wake up and write this. What is the theme for the week? I've got some stories that came out, and I go to sleep thinking about that. And then I kind of wake up with a theme. So it's like your subconscious helping you figure out a theme. And then the pressure of waking up and having to write it, it just helps flow out. Again, if you started trying to write this on Monday and ship on Friday, you'd never be done. You can edit forever. And like I mentioned earlier, you got to write authentically. You can't just stick this in ChatGPT and have something come out, because it's going to be a word salad of weird sounding stuff, like a third grader ran it through a thesaurus. You've got to write it yourself. I do use AI to proofread though. So I just started doing this, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so. So I'll take the newsletter, copy and paste the whole thing, throw it in ChatGPT and say, hey, I don't ask it to edit it. I say, give me a list of 10 grammar errors to correct. And then it gives me a list of 10 errors. Usually about 8 of them are legit. And they're actually really good errors that regular spell check and stuff didn't catch. So I'll make those changes. I'll give it another once over, and then I just ship it. And so with that, I think we should go see how the sausage is made. I was going to jump over to MailChimp. I'm not 100% sure how to change the sharing here, but I'm going to change this sharing to sorry, I've got a campaigns. Okay, so I'm going to jump over. Do you see MailChimp now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so this is where all the campaigns. So I use MailChimp for my newsletters. It's pretty easy to use. There's a bunch of new entrants into the space that I'm considering looking at, just because MailChimp hasn't really improved feature set in a while. And since Intuit bought them, it's just gotten more and more expensive. But for now, MailChimp is great. It's easy to use, and it just works, and change is hard. So if you're looking at doing it, MailChimp is probably the easiest solution. Constant Contact's a much older solution, still works. And then, like I said, there's a slew of new ones, but I don't have a recommendation on those. So I'm going to look at the last week's newsletter. So basically, here's last week's newsletter I shipped from the snowfall is where I was. We shipped out, I think, like 1,500 of these. 408 opened, so the open rate was a little bit low this week. And then of those 408, 76 clicked on it. So we have 5% open rate. I'm sorry, 5% of the total open rate of the 1,500. And then 3 people unsubscribed. But what's really interesting is we want to look at the clicks. For me, like, clicks are engagement. So somebody opening it's no big deal. They might skim it, but if they're clicking on it, they're actually engaged. And so in MailChimp, you can see all the links that you had and the total number of clicks and then the unique clicks. And as I mentioned, the one with the most clicks was a fancy listing that everybody wanted to check out. And so we got 40 clicks on that. And then the clicks kind of go down from there. There's a bunch of other data you can use in MailChimp to track people and all that. And then what I'm going to jump to next is my process. So basically, I write the newsletter and I come in. So this was last week, 4:34 on February 21st. There's an option to replicate, which makes a new newsletter. So I just made number 435 before here. And here it is. This is going to be tomorrow's newsletter. I haven't edited anything yet. I'm just showing you how I will start out tomorrow morning. So I get a copy of last week's newsletter, and then I will start updating it. So I'll put the new date in here. I'll figure out what the highlights are for the week. I'll come up with a little theme. This is my theme we talked about as I think of overnight. And then I'll write an intro of what's going on. So for example, last week I was at the ski hut. I had this thing where I leave coffee mugs out at these places. So I kind of plugged that, talked about there's not a lot of real estate news mid-month. So it was a good week to not have stuff. So I talked about a couple fluff stories, looked at mortgage rates, did a plug for Girl Scout cookies, did the fancy houses we talked about, did a follow-up on a fancy house from last week because somebody had replied to the newsletter, say, hey, did you know this about that? And funny enough, another person responded this week about this house with even more information. So people get into that stuff. Here's the chart we talked about. And this is, I had a canned newsletter for last week that was going to automatically ship if I didn't have time to write it. And so I was guessing on what the numbers would be. And it turns out my guess was almost exact what it actually was. So that was kind of neat. And then this is what went on the field. So while I was out, my team had helped. We had a couple of closings in the week. So we put a note in there. I always try and put a photo of giving the gift basket at closing if we can with the clients. Then we talk about our new listings. And then we do a video tour. So this week we had Susan on my team did a tour. And so we put that in there. And then finally this client review and just some closing stuff. And so the stuff at the bottom kind of stays the same. And then we just edit each week. And having this format helps us get through it pretty quick. So now I'm going to jump back to this one and back to slideshow. And so that's how I do it in MailChimp at a high level. If anybody wants more details or advice on how to do it or suggest or a walkthrough or anything, I'm happy to do that one-on-one, or we'll have questions at the end here as well. If this is not your thing, your clients don't like reading, there's many other things you can do. YouTube channels are gaining in popularity. I see a ton of conversion there. I'm still trying to get over the video hump myself, but everyone that does it says it's amazing. Again, it's one of those things you have to do for a long time. The people I know with success there have been doing it for years. So you've got to build small and have it grow. Same with podcasting and all sorts of stuff. Again, back to that authenticity. It's got to be your style, your voice. You don't want to be forcing it. And if none of these are your thing, don't do it. Figure out something that's your style and do that instead. So now we're going to talk about physical mail. So I don't do a ton of physical mail, but I do have a few key things that I do. and we're coming up on probably my favorite project of the year. And so that's Girl Scout cookies. So every year I buy a ton of Girl Scout cookies for my clients' daughters. I print a bunch of cards, I handwrite a bunch of stuff, and then we ship it. And so this is a super easy project to do. Clients love it. It looks great. Everyone, and the cookies are delicious. You can't lie. I mostly do it because I end up with a bunch of extra cookies and I get to eat them all. So here's how I do it. And the Girl Scout, I don't know where you are in the country. Right now, our Girl Scout cookies are just starting. So we do this every March. It feels like it starts earlier and earlier every year. We ended up ordering cookies beginning of February, but we don't have them yet. So it's still going to end up going out in March for us. So we're literally in the middle of this right now. And so I'm going to talk you through how to do this. If this is a program you're interested in doing, which I recommend you do. So first, go to your network, mailing list, however you reach out to your clients, find out who has Girl Scouts if you don't already know, and then buy lots of cookies. So as you can see in this photo here on this slide, I have the girls come to the office. Most of them wear their outfits, and then I have a picture taken with the haul of cookies they bring. So you can see they each have stacks and stacks of cookies. I order these boxes that fold together. So the size you want is 7 by 5 by 2. They are the best. They fit the cookies, and they are the least expensive size. So the prices change and everything. We found that this is the optimal way to do it. You want to get the boxes on the left here. You can fold these together super quick. First year I did this was a long time ago. I think we did this for the first time in 2018. I had bought this style box, and I didn't send out that many, but the amount of time spent making boxes was insane. With these folding ones, you can literally fold them in a couple seconds and you're ready to go. You drop the stuff in and go. Get your address that you use for mailing into a spreadsheet, CSV, Excel, whatever. Then I use a company called Shipping Easy. So it's shippingeasy.com. Super easy. You just take it, load up the spreadsheet, and it generates all the labels for you and prints them out. Make a card. So every year I make a card and I have it printed. A couple years ago, normally I like to do a folding card so I can fit more stuff on it, and then I have a space to handwrite in it. A couple years ago was low on time and didn't think anybody was reading, and so we did just a flat card front and back with no writing. There's no way to measure if we got better return or not, but I do like doing the folded handwritten card. Either way, you want something that fits in the box, easy. So both of these are the same size and they fit in the box. And then in all of these, we just have the call to action that we need help. So we're thanking the clients, so it's visible, and then we're asking for help. And in the back, I put a bunch of like other info. And then the trick we use for packaging is we use the label as tape. This saves time and resources as well. So on these half sheet labels from Shipping Easy, they'll print 2 labels per sheet. We simply get the label, and you'll see it over here. We fold it over the seam, and then boom, we got tape and label in one, and it's really easy to go. And then we ship. Again, Shipping Easy is what we use. And then I didn't mention here, I should add is IKEA bags. So those big blue IKEA bags is how we get all this stuff to the post office in an easy way. Highly recommend getting a bunch of those so you can get to the post office easy and drop them off. And then after they go out on Shipping Easy, you can track when stuff was delivered, and then you have an opportunity to call your clients if they don't reach out to you directly. So again, we've been doing this for 8 or 9 years, maybe more, and this is our 8th. So this will be our 9th year this year doing the Girl Scout cookies, and highly recommend. Again, if you have questions on this, let me know. Happy to talk you through all that. Next, just some other projects we did. So adding, I just really like to add wow to our clients. So one thing we do at the holidays, any house we sell in December, I go out and personally wrap it. So some of these were just virtual wraps. The top 2, we just had 2 closings in December for buyers. So the top 2 here were houses we actually put ribbon up and we got photo with the clients. The other ones that we got under contract, I just electronically wrapped. And then we do a New Year's card every year with all the houses we sold the prior year. So this is the print there, but it's, slightly different design every year, but we put the houses and then a nice note for them in there. And if you want samples of that, happy to share that with you as well. Finally, I was going to close out with just back to reviews. I kind of opened up with my repeat and referral business and how important reviews are, and how you should be striving to get great reviews, because that's going to drive more and more business. And another thing I use with these reviews is when I'm competing with another agent, and especially when it's a referral, this is how I tell people to refer me. So in our market, we have an agent who is a former football player, Tyler Lockett. So he's decided to become an agent a couple of years ago, and now he sells houses. I'm sure he's going to sell tons of super expensive houses, and I won't be able to compete with him. But this is just an example. What I tell people when they refer me is, hey, they're just thinking you want to work with your friend Rob, and I'm like, hey, actually, I really know what I'm doing. So why don't you put Zillow, Rob McGarty, and Zillow, the other agent name, for example, Tyler Lockett. And I know we have a love-hate relationship with Zillow, but they do have a really good agent profile page, and the data is pretty accurate. I think this is a little bit off on mine, but it's close enough. But when you put your name into Zillow versus the competition's name, are you going to show up better or worse than them? And one way you can really stand out is on the reviews. Even if your deal count's low, if your reviews are high, that's going to make you stand out. So in this scenario, it would be like, hey, look at this guy. He might be an NFL star, but he has no reviews. He's only sold 7 houses, and you'd see the map and all the other stuff on him. So this is a pro tip I wanted to share on when you're getting referred or sharing, getting referred or competing with other agents. And finally, let's connect. So I gave you that QR code there. It goes to my Blink profile. This is the Blink profile here, has all my other links and that kind of stuff. Or you can go to my website, bushwick.com, or go to the team page there and see more about me, my email address, phone number. And then this is the area I service. So I am based in Seattle proper. My office is in Seattle proper. I'm just, downtown's right here. I'm on the north end of downtown. Seattle runs about this area here. And then the outlying areas, Bellevue and Redmond and Kirkland. This is where all the tech companies are based. This is the area I service. So I'm kind of Seattle and north. I don't know if you know Bradley Hansen. He's down on this end. So he kind of services this area here. And then we kind of meet each other in the middle down here. So if you got something on the south end, send it to Bradley. Something on the north end, send it to me. I also do some stuff over on the east side. So if you ever hear of anybody looking at anything in Snoqualmie Pass or Suncadia, Tumble Creek, Roslyn area. Roslyn's where that 1990s TV show Northern Exposure was filmed. I spend a lot of time out there and do some business out there as well. Otherwise, that's all I've got for presentation today, and I'll just open it up for questions.
Rob, this is Carol. I have a question.
Sure.
Your Girl Scout cookies, that's a neat idea. I've never seen anyone do that. I was just curious, what's the call to action? So I imagine you send a couple boxes of cookies to your clients. And then is it a call to action just giving them, hey, buy cookies from one of these Girl Scouts?
No, the call to action is, so I send one box to everybody. And the call to action is like, here's some cookies, enjoy. And it's sort of a way of saying, hey, we're supporting our clients' kids. So we're supporting you, and we're giving back to the community. So like last year's card was like expanding waistlines and community. So I try and think of the year before was just enjoy your cookies. But the idea is like, hey, it's just a gift to our clients, but it's not just some rando gift. It's something that's kind of community driven. Most people tend to like Girl Scout cookies. Most people tend to like Thin Mints, so I've just stuck with that theme. Every now and then we have some. We did a couple gluten-free ones. It's just a little bit hard to keep track of, and so for simplicity, I just Thin Mints. It's always a green theme. It's always Thin Mints. It is what it is. And the call to action is really just, hey, we need help. Like, send us some clients. It says, this last year was home buying demand remains strong, but there's no home for sales. We need more listings. Do you know anyone considering buying or selling? Maybe it's you. And it's just a way of reiterating that you are looking for business. A lot of times people just assume, especially when you send out like this year, the year before, we just had all of our activity for the year on it up to March, and people were like, whoa, maybe he's too busy to work with us. And so it's just reminding people that you do have bandwidth to take them on.
Got it.
Yep.
Super.
Is anybody doing a newsletter now?
I started, but it has not been consistent.
Yep. How many did you ship?
Let me look. To my database is probably about 250-ish people in the past. Something that I like to do, because I'm in Kansas City and it's not too big, I really do love and I love trying new restaurants, so I always like to highlight new places to go to.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, man, if that's your thing, I mean, I would latch onto that and say every, like I said, I do weekly, which some people say is way too frequent, but it's like just my thing, and everyone knows that's my thing now. But you could figure out a rhythm, and if that's going to be weekly, monthly, or whatever. But if you just made it the same consistently, and if your thing was restaurants, like after doing that for a while, people would just start to know that, hey, Carol's going to give me a restaurant tip this week. And then maybe you could keep a list running of all the restaurants that you've done, and it could start to become people's cheat sheet for where to eat. It could be like, you just say, hey, this month we're at this taco place and whatever, and then here's a link to your website with the different food types. And it could be for your clients when they're undecided on where they want to go to eat, or they're looking for inspiration, they go there, and that's the resource.
Totally. You were saying you do different themes. What are some examples of the themes that you would use?
Themes on
the newsletter you do.
Yeah, so let me just go back up there. Oh, so themes. Yeah, so what I do is it just depends what's going on in the market that week. And so for instance, last week was midwinter break for our area. So that means all the kids were out of school, everyone goes on vacation, everyone's out of town. It's generally pretty slow. And so leading into that week, that was kind of the theme. It was like, hey, everyone's setting everyone's expectations that, hey, there's gonna be really low on listings this week, and they were down whatever 20-something% for that week. And buyers are gonna be out of town. It could be a good opportunity for you as a buyer because there'll be less competition. At the same time, there'll be less new listings for sale. And so that's kind of the initial theme for it. Like last week, the theme was, hey, I'm on this trip and I leave these mugs, and here's me leaving a new mug, and there's no news this week, and I'll see you next week. The team's here if you need anything. I mean, a little bit more involved than that, but that's the theme. And so for this week's theme, I don't really have a great answer. I got a couple ideas brewing, like, obviously I haven't run the numbers yet, but I'm anticipating a huge spike in new listings because that always happens the week after midwinter break. And this is sort of the start to our season up here. And so that's likely going to be the theme. And I'll uncover that as I start going. But this week I've been catching up from like being out of the office. So I have not really been tracking articles and notes and that kind of stuff. But normally I'll have so I have that in my head now, and then I'll probably do a little bit of reading tonight just to see if there's anything else, and then start formulating a theme. And then if I can wake up with a theme, it's easier just to bang out and get something shipped. But I know people who try and make it perfect. They will sit there and wordsmith it forever, and then they'll never, ever ship it. And so it's kind of like they say on video, you just have to not watch the video you filmed because nobody wants to see themselves on screen or hear themselves. So I proofread it. I do find, like I said, I do find the AI editing tools to be really helpful because I'll catch stuff where it was totally spell check good, but totally wrong. But if anytime I feel like I try and write something in AI, it sounds like gibberish or somebody tried to write it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Got it.